And we're here live. Thank you so much for joining us for Walker's Legacy and our Ask an Expert programming, which is our latest digital masterclass series featuring women of influence who have achieved success in business and beyond. Please join us today for an engaging conversation on tools and techniques for success, personal branding, and career reinvention with iconic model and modelpreneur Beverly Johnson. My name is Natalie Madeira Cofield, and I am the founder and CEO of Walker's Legacy. Named in honor of Madam C.J. Walker, Walker's Legacy was created with a mission to cultivate an ecosystem of access designed to inspire, equip, and engage a global network of professional and entrepreneurial women of color. You can learn more about Walker's Legacy by joining us online at www.walkerslegacy.com or check out our programming in the 10 cities in which Walker's Legacy operates, initiatives, programs, masterclasses, seminars, and conferences in a neighborhood near you. Before we get started with today's program, I would like to say thank you to our title partner, AARP, for their partnership in making the first installment of Ask a Boss possible. AARP is committed to providing resources to aspiring 50-plus multicultural women entrepreneurs with specifics on learning how to start a business and, most importantly, understanding the risk and reward to help determine if small business ownership is right for you. AARP recognizes that women of color are the fastest growing entrepreneurial segment of entrepreneurs, and therefore they want to ensure that they reach out to the 50-plus age group. So let's get started with today's program. Do you want to learn more from your business or gain more from your career? Have you found yourself looking for a new way to start a business or rebrand yourself strategically and are looking to hear lessons from an icon in branding and business and beyond? Today's discussion and featured one-on-one is with Beverly Johnson, global icon, model, modelpreneur, actress, author, entrepreneur, investor, philanthropist, and media mogul. And I didn't mention mom. Beverly was the first African-American model to appear on the cover of American Vogue. And since that time, she has been featured on the cover of over 500 magazines. And the New York Times has named Beverly as one of the 20th century's 100 most influential people in the fashion industry. Please join me in welcoming Beverly Johnson. Beverly, thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. Thank you, Natalie and Walker's Legacy, and particularly thank you to AARP, #DisruptAging, which I'm all about.
Awesome. Wonderful. Well, Beverly, listen, it is an absolute honor to have the opportunity to interview you today. I went through that intro, and I mean, it's absolutely true. You are a living icon, not only in the fashion industry, but for every Black girl that's grown up reading the pages of fashion magazines. And you have helped to define what beautiful is and what beautiful means to us. And so as we think about your career and your successful modeling career at that, there are so many records that have yet to be surpassed. Talk to us, Beverly, about some of the decisions that you were making at 18 that have helped you maintain success almost 40 years later.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, first of all, I never wanted to be a model. I wanted to be a lawyer. And as fate has it, it took me down another path. So when I went into the modeling industry, I understood that it was an industry that was very short-lived. At the time, it was 5 or 6 years. It's like that of an athlete. So I went into my modeling career knowing that I needed another career very soon. So I always had that in the back of my head, you know, how am I going to earn a living once this is over? And at the same time, I wanted to make the most of this situation that I was in, which was a high fashion model. At the time, it was $75 an hour. and my father was making $75 a week
Mm.
working in a steel plant. So it was very important to me to be able to take advantage of this amazing opportunity and to accumulate money and wealth for my family and my siblings to go to college. But also I knew that that was going to be very short-lived.
Wonderful. And so, I mean, I can't even imagine making in a week what your father was making, or making in a day what your father was making in a month. Is that correct?
No, I was making $75 an hour, and my father was earning $75 a week.
Oh my goodness.
So what he made in a week, I had the opportunity to make in an hour. Thus, my motivation to get into the modeling career. I knew nothing about modeling. I didn't grow up being pretty. I didn't grow up wanting to be a fashion model. The only magazine in our house was Ebony magazine, and they weren't even doing the fashion style section then. So it was one of those opportunities that I was able to use my academic and also my competitiveness. I swam. I was a swimmer as a competitive swimmer, so I knew about training and discipline. You know, I would practice before school and after school my swimming, and also I was one of those kind of nerds that loved school. So I was able to combine those two work ethics that I had with and applied it to the modeling career. Thus, I wanted to know everything about modeling. I wanted to know photographers, fashion. I didn't know anything about it. So I was like a sponge. And so I think that I wasn't wrapped up in the whole fantasy about being a model. And I love the fact that once I became a model, I had access to a different part of my brain that I didn't even know I had. And that was, the artistic, the creative part. So it was very exciting. I think one of the things that I learned from the career was how to keep people interested in the model Beverly Johnson. Whether it was a new hairstyle, whether it was changing agency, causing some kind of disruption. She moved agencies. Oh my God, whether it was, going after those goals that no one would even attempt to go after, which was the American Vogue cover. And once achieving that cover, realizing that I was the first woman of color on that cover. And that, of August 1974, was the defining moment for me in my life. And still is one of the defining moments of my life.
So Beverly, talk to us a little bit, because, as you just mentioned, you talked about your family, you being the first in your family to achieve some of these successes. And they say it takes 10 years to become an overnight success. And they also say that no one gets to success alone. And I imagine that there were many moments during your early career where you needed mentorship, you were looking for advice or guidance, and maybe you could go to your family, maybe you could not. Talk to us about some of the critical team members or the roles that you had, in your life and around you as a business brand and as an icon that helped position you for success.
Well, what I learned when I went into business for myself as a model, I learned that you can't do it alone. I'm an introvert, and I love being alone. Mm-hmm. And I realized that this is the kind of industry that you need people. The woman that I worked at the Jenny's shop in Buffalo, New York, was the manager of this store that my mother made me work at my last year of high school in order to get clothes for college. She was the one that gave me this number of this woman if I ever changed my mind about becoming a model, to call this woman. And I was like, I'm becoming a lawyer. Thank you very much. Anyways, I kept the number. And sure enough, when I went to Boston to Northeastern University, and I was doing well. I was teaching swimming at the Roxbury YWCA for $28 a week, to get my little pint of Bacardi's rum to run with the girls to Harvard and so on and so forth. And I started to say, I decided I was going to stay in Boston and continue this job for the summer. Of course, the job was cut short. And I was like, oh my goodness, I don't have a job. And I've been working since I'm 14 years old. And the girls that went to college with me, some of them were from New York City, and they said, why don't you become a model? And it hit me that this woman at the Ginny shop, Mimi, was always trying to tell me to become a model if I ever changed my mind. And I kept the number. I kept that number. And so it was her. Of course, I had to convince my parents that I wanted to go to New York to become a model. And my father was like, oh, you want to be a streetwalker now? I said, no, Dad. This sounds very legitimate. Look at this magazine. It looks very legitimate to me. At any rate, I convinced my mother, and my mother went against my father's wishes, which you don't do. And we made an appointment in New York from this woman's number, and a woman named Corby Pleasant, who was a biracial, beautiful woman at Jack's Fifth Avenue, which was a very elitist boutique on 57th Street and Fifth Avenue. So I went from working part-time swimming in Northeastern University. Now I'm in New York City on 57th Street and Fifth Avenue, speaking to a manager and asking her, did I have potential to become a model with my mother? And to make a long story short, she said yes. She made the appointment for Glamour magazine, and it was Glamour magazine, after waiting there all day long and what have you, that came out and finally said, we want to take your daughter on a 10-day trip to Fire Island for a 10-page spread for Glamour magazine. And it happened just like that. One day I was a student, the next day I was a fashion model.
Wow. Wow. Not bad for an upstate New York girl. I'm from Rochester.
Oh, yeah. But for me, as a young kid, it was, I had so much confidence that for me, this is how it was supposed to be. I looked at my mother and said, I told you. You know, when you're young and you're naive, and for me, I was full of, vinegar, and I was born with a fire in my belly. I was born that way. I wanted to achieve everything. I wanted to be the best in school. I wanted to be the best in swimming. Anything that I did, I wanted to be the best in. So I took that fire and I applied it to the modeling world.
So Beverly, let's talk about that. So, again, it seems like it was overnight, but nothing happens overnight. And success is something that is sustained progress. And that's something that you have definitely done over the tenure of your career. But we know that there had to have been a moment in all of this, and I believe many moments, where things were challenging and where it wasn't as easy as showing up and here you are walking into glamour. Talk to us about a significant challenge that you had over the course of your career and how you overcame that.
Well, when I got the 10-page spread for Glamour magazine, it's going to take 3 months before it comes out, right? So I was really torn between school and modeling, because that's how we were taught. Everybody goes to college, there's no discussion. So the first 4 years, I worked at this shop, Jack's Fifth Avenue, with this woman who got me the appointment with Glamour magazine. Because when you start off, you're not working every day. Mm-hmm. I needed to provide myself with a place to stay and money to, go around for the go-sees. So it was like 4 years, you got a job here and there, but you could not just exist on the modeling career. Mm-hmm. Even with the 10-page spread in Glamour magazine and working for Vogue magazine and working for Essence magazine, mm-hmm. you could not sustain yourself in New York City. So I had this part-time job, which she afforded me to go out on go-sees. So I had the kind of job that I had this kind of opportunity where I could go on a go-see if I needed to. And also I was going to Brooklyn College at night because I still had this thing in my head. I got to graduate from college. I don't do something and never finish it. Mm. So it's doing what you have to do. And also, when you're a model, what people don't understand is that you're an independent contractor. Mm. You hire the modeling agency. You are an entrepreneur. And your business is yourself. Mm-hmm. So a lot comes with that. The weight, the thing, the beauty products. I had some amazing, I call them my gay gurus, who mm-hmm. really taught me the business. Mm-hmm. With the hair and the skin and taking me to see the opera and the ballet and, the nightclubs in New York and really taught me about what it is to be a fashion model. So you have all of the, and also I was eager. I was curious and I was eager to learn. So you have, it takes a team of people to be able to do this. And also I knew that this was something that was rare, although in the 70s, there were a lot of Black models. There were Black modeling agencies. So I wasn't like, you know, the only one walking around. I did later on become the token, but I wasn't the only model in the business at that time. There were a lot of us, you know, that were working and trying to achieve particularly that American Vogue cover that eluded Black models, which I really didn't know about that. I didn't really know there hadn't been one because I thought that would be impossible. We're in the 70s, you know, it just came out in the 60s and the civil rights. But I say all that to say that I think one has to be curious and one has to have a faith in themselves that it's going to happen. There's no rush because you know it's going to happen. You know, you just have to put yourself in the right position. I heard something from someone the other day because a lot of people say, you know, it's who you know. And this person said, no, you know, it's not who you know. It's who knows you. So I think that's and it rang true to me, you know, in a sense that I realized that by doing all this editorial for Glamour and Vogue and Essence and all these magazines around the world, which I was getting editorial rate, and editorial rate was like $125 a day, as opposed to working in advertisement and commercials, making, you know, tens of thousands of dollars a day. I chose the editorial because there was something in my mind that says, people are going to know my face and they're going to know my name. And that is what's going to sustain me. Now, don't ask me where I got that from. I was a young girl, but I had deduced that this was important. Walking around New York, people recognizing me from Glamour magazine, people congratulating me from being seen in Vogue and Harper's Bazaar and all of these various magazines. So I gave up a lot in the beginning. And of course, the agencies weren't very happy about it because they wanted to make money, because the more money I made, the more money they made. But I thought that that was going to be a great investment. So I had already at a very young age knew that I was a brand. And that brand had to be nurtured. I got rid of my first husband because he got caught smoking marijuana on a train. I said, oh, no, you don't. You must have my brand. Bye-bye.
Well, Beverly, I'm trying to find my first husband to get rid of. So if you know of anyone, pass them my way. So Beverly, I wanted to ask you a question about, you know, you talk about yourself. You understood at a very early age that you were indeed a brand. You were doing things that were really cultivating yourself as a brand. And it just makes me kind of think about, you know, again, our partnership is with AARP on this. And as we start to think about who are 55 years old and over, and who are thinking about a strategic rebranding for themselves and are thinking about ways in which they can continue to build a brand or start to build a brand for themselves. And some of them feel overwhelmed by the prospect of building something from the ground up. They're underwhelmed at work and they want to do more. They just don't know how to go about doing that. Talk to us a little bit about, I mean, you've maneuvered through a lot of spaces. When I read off your bio, you have a lot of titles. Talk to us about your strategic and continued rebranding efforts for yourself along the way.
Well, one of the most important things that I found is that every day you wake up at ground zero. If I could dust off all those covers and say, hey, you know, give me some money, I would do it. But it doesn't work like that. I think that one has to have a sense of discovery and adventure to be able to go and have the faith, because it's a leap of faith is what you take. And whether you like it or not, change is going to happen. It's going to happen. You're going to lose that job. You're going to be bored out of your mind with that job. You're going to, want to, follow your passions in life.
Mm-hmm.
So you might as well do it with a smile on your face, is what I always say. And like I was juggling modeling and I was juggling this other part-time job and going to school. It takes a lot of juggling at first. But at the end of it, it takes a leap of faith. It takes a leap of faith that this is what I'm going to step out and do. And it's not known what's going to happen. But what happens as an entrepreneur is that the risks are very high and the rewards are even higher. Otherwise, you can just stay in your job and work and be unhappy. And there's nothing wrong with that. And another book I read was very interesting, and it's a book that I sometimes recommend. It's called The Self-Made Billionaire.
Okay.
And I believe it's Sam Cohen. And you know what the thread was through each story was that they had worked in corporate America.
Mm.
And they were so creative and productive, and then they took that leap of faith. So they had corporate America, so they knew how that worked. Because if you becoming an entrepreneur, hopefully you're going to be working with corporate America. So you know the underpinnings of what it is to work in corporate America. Plus, with your creativity and your productivity and your passion and your creative genius, mixed with that combination, it's explosive.
That's right.
It's really explosive. So I say that don't get down on your job. Use it to your benefit, that you're learning exactly what you need to learn to be able to go to the next step. But I think it's very important that there are so many women of color that are entrepreneurs. And I know why. We're strong, we're creative, we'll balance the family, the husband, the boyfriend, the parents, our children having children. We can do it all. And so instead of just doing it all, which we do, that's just what we do, right?
Yep.
Now we're harnessing that same energy and doing it for ourselves. While continually, I have 3 grandchildren, 1 more on the way. While continuing living our lives and doing whatever we have to do for children, family, boyfriends, fiancés, you name it, sickness and, parents,
Husband,
parents. Yeah. But now as a woman, I think that, or as a Black woman, we finally found our voice and say, yes, we can. Oh yeah, we can do that too.
So Beverly, okay, and I'm going to go back to asking you a question about some of the business ventures that you're currently engaged in.
Yes.
Talking about being a Black woman, and finding our voice. Talk to us a little bit about an experience where you have figured out how to communicate what it was that you wanted to get done, who you stood for, what you represented in a way that was effective. Because we talked a little bit about offline the fact that the angry Black woman situation is something that plagues Black women a lot. We say something affirmatively and now we're being argumentative. I would love to hear from you, because I know it's happened where you've had to stand up for yourself. You've had to find your voice. How did you do that while also navigating your way through the reality of the fact that you are indeed a strong Black woman?
What I did was I used my brain.
Okay.
In a sense that I knew that one day I would be able to say what I meant and what I felt. But in the beginning, that wasn't the time. I didn't have the leverage. So I think people make a mistake by, stepping out there and, I'm blah, and then you get fired, okay?
Mm-hmm.
That defeats the purpose. But when I did achieve the leverage of being the #1 model, Black or white, in the world, I knew I could use my voice then. And I did. I did in a way of speaking about depression, speaking about my daughter and losing custody of my daughter. I spoke about things that were, that I felt were obstacles in my life that I overcame. And I knew that hearing those stories would help someone else. And I did have the voice in different situations to say no, and sometimes hell no. But you've got to be in a position to be able to do that, which means that I knew that I was making this company X amount of dollars, and they weren't going to upset the apple barrel. You know, they know how to keep their mouth closed when they're making money. So I think that it's very important to choose the time and place. There's a time and place for everything. The other thing I'll say is that business is very difficult in the sense that it's not for the faint of heart. It's just not.
No, it's not.
and when I decided that, you know, when you make up your mind about something and you put that out in the universe and you pray on it and you meditate on it and then you just let it go, it comes to you. And it came to me in the way of this company coming to me and saying, you know, we want to do an eyewear line with you. This is the 90s, right? You got Naomi Campbell on your tail and Tyra Banks. You got the girls coming at you now, right? I've been in there a couple of decades, you know, like blocking and tackling, you know. And so they were going to do the Beverly Johnson eyewear line. And it was in all of the optical stores in Sears across the nation. It was huge. And they actually did a mold of my face because they said, you know, African Americans have a particular, you know, particular head sculpture and cheekbones that, you know, our Caucasian brothers and sisters don't have. But they also made the eyewear like the Eiffel Tower, and they would go Versace before Versace. And it was a huge success. So then came the Beverly Johnson eyewear line and all the Sears, and people were stopping me, everyone, white and black, going, girl, I got your glasses on. I mean, you know, it was one of those kind of things that instinctually I knew I should do that. And the next instinctual thing came to me was, because I said, oh, I like this licensing thing, because all I have to do is go to the mailbox every quarter. Ching.
Right.
I didn't have to show up to make my money, right? So the next thing that came to me was someone said, you know, there's this wig and hair extension company that is getting ready to go under, and they were thinking about, were you interested in it? And I didn't even wear hair extensions at the time. I had all my hair, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I was like, wig? Oh, I don't think so. I thought about that. I tell you, it was God that came to me. And the next day I said, I'll do it. And we took this little company that was federally, that was on teetering on bankruptcy. And we took it from a $500,000 loss company to a $40 million company in like 4 years. And this was a licensing deal. It was so successful that I said, it was Black is Beautiful hairline. I said, no, the line got to be Beverly Johnson, because I don't know which is Black and Beautiful I'm selling and which is, I said, it just has to be me. And I was the only line of this Korean company. And it revolutionized the way hair extensions and wigs were used it was just an amazing ride in the 90s. It was just incredible because it was creative. You had these little girls in Philadelphia coming up with, I got a wig that could be cornrow, and they would take that wig and they would reproduce it, and I would put it on and we would sell it. And it was an education for me in business. Yeah. I was just the observer, but I also was participating as a licensor.
So Beverly, I want to cherry pick a couple of things that you talked about, but before I kind of frame my next question, I want to bring to the forefront some things that I heard you say that were, to me, gems. Number one, you talked about the fact that entrepreneurship is not for the faint at heart. It's just not. It's absolutely not. And I think we're living in a day and age now where you see entrepreneurship on Instagram. You see entrepreneurship being written about all the time. And what we're not hearing enough of are the stories behind the story of how people became as successful as they have. And so this is very special to hear your story behind the story today. One of the other things that you talked about that I want to ask questions about later are, women are constantly asked questions about balancing and having it all. And I think we're asked those questions more from the perspective of the men or partners that we have in our lives, and less about the self-care that we need to be successful. And so I heard you mention a little bit about having a moment of being depressed, and mental health and happiness and joy are so critical when you're in these types of roles where you're the only, or you're an entrepreneur and you're out here on your own. And so now my question is, I just wanted to make sure that we got those points because they're really important, for these roles that you've had, Beverly. You talked a little bit about having your money make money for you without you having to be there all the time, which is another critical component of scaling. How do you know what you want to engage in? And what kind of questions do you ask yourself to ensure that these are the right next steps for you?
Well, that comes from your higher power. It's that voice. It's not that loud voice that says, "Hey, you got to do that." That voice, that's the ego. Ignore that voice. That's a bad move. But it's that voice once you meditate and you pray on something. It's that sweet voice that says, "Oh, this is for you." That's the voice you pay attention to. And for me, once you decide to do something, everything and everybody shows up to help you do just that.
The universe conspires for you.
It does. And the other thing that I think we have to recognize is that we live in an abundant universe. There is enough for everyone. So there's no need with the crabs in the barrel. There's no need for that. That really distinguishes what you're trying to do with that kind of attitude. So I think that we have to realize that there's enough to go around, and believe me, the world is full of people that you see out there, and you realize that there's enough to go around. So you can't have that kind of mindset. You want to have a billionaire mindset. You want to be around people where that is where you want to go.
That's right. So
you don't want to be around people where that's not where you want to go. You want to be around people because, hey, I want to be in that arena. I don't want to be outside of the baseball park, holding the ticket and wishing I could get in. I want to get into the baseball park. Let's do one thing at a time. Let me just get in there, and then I'll figure out how I'm going to get on a team, and then I'll figure out how I can hit a home run.
So Beverly, real quick too, because you mentioned this, and I chuckled at it because it's true. So, with every new generation, there's a new generation, right? So, you mentioned that Tyra and others were right on your heels, and you were still finding ways to innovate and iterate upon your personal brand. What do you say? We were talking again about AARP and the woman who's 50 plus who sees this young 29-year-old woman at the office who's now the senior vice president of X, Y, and Z. What do you say to her about what she could be doing to continue to help reposition herself inside of her organization and to not let that dissuade her from movement? Because it's inevitable that this will happen. And it's not to any, but we're living in an age and time now again where on Instagram, a year later, you can be in a different position. So what do you say to someone about where their focus needs to be as it relates to competition?
Well, I'll tell you a very quick story. Naomi Sims was my predecessor. This gorgeous mahogany. She was so stunning. She literally stopped traffic when she was walking in New York. And everybody was waiting for Naomi Sims to come to this fashion show. And, we models that did a lot of photographies, we didn't do fashion shows. But I wanted to do fashion shows because I wanted to know what it was about. I wanted to be with the designers and so on and so forth. Anyways, in comes Naomi. She's finally arrived. And they stand there and they're undressing her, you know, and because she's late. And she looks over and I'm in the corner, you know, putting on my makeup. You know, I'm scared to death, right? My first fashion show. And she runs over to me. She says, I just want to say, thank you for everything that you're doing. I see what you're doing. It's wonderful. I support you. I love you. And I just want to wish you all the luck in the world. Just keep doing what you're doing. And at that moment, everything changed for me. And I decided that every new girl that comes into the business, I am going to embrace them in the same way Naomi Sims embraced me. And that's what I did. I embraced Naomi Campbell. I embraced Tyra. I embraced, you know, Cindy Crawford, you name them, of the girls. And I think that by doing that, they absolutely learn a lot from you, but you learn a lot from them too.
That's right. That's right. That's good. So that kind of dovetails us into my question around mentorship and who were some of your mentors. It's clear from that answer that you became in some way, whether formally or informally, a mentor to many of the icons that we just heard you mention. But who are your mentors along the way, Beverly? Who are you talking to get advice for business and some of the current ventures that you're involved in?
Well, I have 5 women mentor, and they're billionaires. Some of them self-made, some of them not. And I tell you, I was scared to death to ask them, you know, to be my mentor. And a mentor is not somebody you call up every day. A mentor is someone that when you get in a position that you really are torn between, you really don't, and you're taking polls and the family is saying no and somebody else is saying yes, and you really don't know what to do. You call that mentor. Because that billionaire woman has a perspective that's up here and she's looking down. She's been there. And so she knows exactly the answer. But once you get that answer, if she says, yes, do that, do exactly that. Don't get the answer and then do what you want to do. You know what I'm saying? So you have to be able to respect their wisdom and use their wisdom. You know, as mothers, you know, we give a lot of wisdom out. Some they use, some they don't use. But it's nice to see them come back around after they have their own children and go, yeah, Mom, when you said this, and then you'd be like, yeah, right, I told you. But mentorship is very important, but people think it's someone that they can call every day and whatever. You know, those people are too busy. You see someone that's where I want to go. That's who I want to be. People love to help. You know, when you get lost and you ask for directions, people be like, oh, go here, and go to, you know, Tommy's house and make a right. People love to help. It's just our human nature. So don't be afraid of mentorship. And the other thing I would like to say is that most people that want to be entrepreneurs, they really got the strategy down and all of this, but they don't build the relationships. People want to do business with people. If they know someone that they've been whatever for a year and they know who they are, they want to do business with you because they know who you are.
That's right.
And whatever you have, it could be the greatest thing, but they don't know you.
That's right.
So it is an effort, and you have to think of it as an introvert for myself. You have to think of it that this is part of business. I got to go to this party. I got to go to this conference. I have to do this Walker Legacy. You know, these are things that is required for the billionaire mindset.
While you're talking about the billionaire mindset, which we have now shared on all our social platforms as a book that you would encourage folks to read, are there any other books that you would recommend to some of our viewers today that may help them personally, professionally, or spiritually?
Well, there are so many because I'm an avid reader.
Okay.
But I do believe that autobiographies and biographies are very important. You have to read their story. It's how they were all the way down. You have to read the Elon Musk story where he blew through 128 million. He didn't have money to buy, you know, Christmas gifts. And, you know, you have to, and then he got that phone call about SpaceX. and got that contract. You have to read people's stories, Sarah Blakely and Sheila C. Johnson, of how they did it. And it was Sheila C. Johnson, that was one of the founders of.
Oh, I know Sheila. Yeah.
And you have to read how she was doing violin lessons and then going back to, BET television work. I mean, you have to read people's stories of what they had to go through to get where they are. And that is what gives you the hope that, okay, what's happened to me is natural. With, this whole thing of, hair on fire, because when you're in business, every day is hair on fire, some kind of problem going on.
Yeah.
Is that, okay, this is the process, and it's natural. It's not like you're some unique person that's constantly failing. That's what happens in business. You fail.
Yeah.
The other thing is that in my memoirs, The Face That Changed It All, I tell my story from childhood in the 70s and 80s. And it's a New York Times bestseller. But not only is it that, we're doing it for Netflix. Mara Brock-Akil is the writer-director. And, it's been an amazing journey. So that's one of the books that you can most certainly read. Don't judge me.
Is this breaking news that we just got from you, Beverly? That this? I think we just got some breaking news from you, Beverly.
Yeah, it's Warner Brothers. Yeah, Warner Brothers. And Mara Brock-Akil, who I adore and love. And I wanted a Black woman to tell my story. You know?
Yeah.
Everybody wants to tell my story because this is a very exciting story. I married a guy in the mafia. Oh, God, it's like a mess, right?
Yes.
But I wanted a Black woman to do my story. I wanted a Black woman's voice to write my story.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that I'm doing, which I'm very excited about, and it's funny how things come about. My daughter is dating someone, and they are up in San Francisco in the tech world, and she calls me. She says, "Mom," and she never, calls me about much about fashion except for take that Instagram down. Kind of thing. She says, "Mom, there's this fashion technology company that's amazing, and it's for shoes." I said, "Oh, sweetheart, that's so sweet of you to call and say." So she sent it to Brian, my fiance and my business partner, who's an absolute genius, big hedge fund guy, very successful man. She sent it to him, and he said, "Honey, you got to come look at this fashion technology shoe thing." I was like, "Oh, where is he?" I said, I looked at it and I was like, "Oh, that's nice. What do the shoes do? Do they take you and fly you around?" I said, "Listen, I'm not, I'm too grounded. I'm not interested." He says, "I really think that, you should look at this." He was on me for about 2 weeks. Finally, the woman, a woman of color, sent me the shoes. Okay, the package was fabulous. It's called Thesis Couture. I took out the shoes. They like their shoes, gorgeous. Okay, luxury. This woman used to work at SpaceX, and she used to walk in Hawthorne, right? And she was in human resources, and she did a lot of tours and whatever. And she took the high heels she had on, and she threw it to a rocket scientist and an engineer. She said, "Take this shoe apart and tell me why the heck they hurt so much." And she ended up redesigning the stiletto.
Wow.
It's patented. And baby, if anybody had saw me at the Essence Festival, when I was running around the convention center and partying for like 12 hours straight in my Thesis Couture, and they kept saying, "How do you keep those shoes on?" Because they're running around barefoot in sneakers. I said, Thesis Couture, it's a startup.
Okay.
It's a woman of color, and it's genius. It's going to revolutionize the stiletto. Absolutely.
So you heard this here as well, folks. Thesis Couture is where they can go to find this shoe, Beverly. Is that what we're hearing?
Yes, indeed. Right now we're a little pricey, but you're going to love them. Of course, it's luxury down. But the thing is that if you bought any shoes and they're in your closet in a shrine, you never put them on, but you can't throw them away because you paid too much money for them, You will never put on another stiletto except for Thesis Couture. That's how fabulous they are.
Okay, so Beverly, here's a question for you. So we've just heard about Thesis Couture. We know that you're a philanthropist. We know that you're an investor. Let's just say we have a viewer who's thinking of some point down the line pitching you. What are you looking for in a business investment? What kind of businesses actually pique your interest?
I don't know.
I have to ask, Beverly. I have to ask.
I really don't know. It's very interesting. You know, I've been asked to go into shopping channels, you know, forever, right? I did a think in the 80s with QVC, but forever. And I was like, oh, you know, what do you know? Another pair of pants, another. And then I celebrated Peter Nygaard's anniversary. He's a Canadian designer. He's Finnish. And he developed these new slim jeans. And I thought, okay, yeah, it takes, you know, 20 pounds off. Great. Put those bad boys on. Oh, my God. Hourglass immediately. And also not flattening the bottom. And thus, the Beverly Johnson collection by Peter Nygaard on Evine Live in the spring. So I don't know what it is. I can't tell you, you know, I like a 5-pound box of 50s, but I can't tell you what it is that's going to strike my interest. You never know. I think you never know. I think you know when you know.
Okay. I imagine, though, that the business would need to be scalable. It would need to be something that's kind of an area that you have an interest in. And it would be wonderful if the person had some connections and networks to people and individuals that you may know, as to kind of gain your trust and awareness of the business, correct?
Yes, that's kind. Yes, but you know, there's some things. You know, I have a reality show. You know, I did one in 2012. My daughter Beverly's Full House on the Oprah Winfrey Network, and I have another one that we're looking to, you know, get the green light for. And basically, you know, my reality shows are constructive reality shows, but it's, you're not going to get rich from reality shows.
Mm-hmm.
But the platform.
That's right.
The platform. So you do a lot of things because that is what you need to do to remain relevant, to actually share your life with someone. So it's not all about money at that particular time, but it's all driving you towards your goals. I believe in goals. I believe in setting goals, you know, time and how much and the whole thing. But I do believe there are things that you do that, like the wig company. I didn't know I was going to become a multi-millionaire from this wig company.
Yeah.
I just said I had a feeling. You never know. You just don't know.
So Beverly, okay, so you said I like to set goals. And one of the questions that I had for you is, and you know, we've talked about how for women of color, it's very difficult to obtain investment capital into their companies. When they do receive funding at many times, it's at higher rates. You know, what do you say to the goal-rich entrepreneur who's listening today, who finds themselves cash poor at the moment? What kind of strategies for reaching success would you give to her as the second to last question I asked you before we close out today?
Well, I would say Google, because there are so, you know, I speak for JP Morgan Chase, and sometimes for AARP, and sometimes for AT&T. These are Fortune 500 companies. They all have scholarships.
Okay.
For entrepreneurs. They all have money that they need to give away. So I think that one has to be actively involved in where you can get the money, not necessarily at a bank that you're going to have high interest rates on, but you know, more for investors, scholarship money. You know, do your homework. You know, I think that it's not who you know, it's who knows you. So that when you go to that investor, say, "Oh, I heard about you. Oh, you got 400,000 on Instagram." Oh, you know, there's all these things that you have to be constantly building and working at. You know, to Twitter, to Facebook, and all those things that nobody likes to do, but you have to do it. all those things in order to attract that person, or when you do go to that person, they know who you are, they can look up who you are, and that you can get that investor to invest.
Got it. Thank you. So Beverly, my last question is really an open one, which is what's next for you? We've heard a little bit about a reality TV show. We know about your investments with your company. But why don't you share with us if there's anything else that's exciting that you'd love for us to know about or to support?
Oh my goodness. I have 21 projects. I write them each down. I have goals for each one. You know, I want to do this by this goal, and I want to make this amount of money by this date. Right? Close it up, put it in the universe. But right now, I'm looking towards the spring collection, Beverly Johnson collection on eVine. It's the third shopping channel. It's someplace where I can be a big fish in a little pond, which I like. The shoe technology company, Thesis Couture, you can go on right now and order a pair of shoes. She doesn't like Tesla. You know, you buy the shoes and we give it to you in spring. Gorgeous. And we're working on getting a lower price shoe that we can all enjoy. It's going to revolutionize the shoe industry. Everybody's going to be using this patent. I'm so excited. You know, I'm working with Mara Brock-Akil on my story, which is fabulous and wonderful. And of course, the reality show that is about the business and a lot of faces that you will know in the business, which is very exciting. And I could go on and on. But one thing I wish is that women that are listening to this broadcast to know that they can do it. Yes, you can have it all. And I realize that too. And when you're young and everything and emotional, this and that and the other, I can go see my grandchildren and take care of them for a couple of days. I can be on the phone. You can have it all. And I'm a testament to that.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Beverly Johnson, for sharing your time with us today. I'd like to thank you for sharing your secrets for success with myself personally, and then also with our viewers as part of Walker's Legacy's Ask a Boss series, where we are committed to finding fantastic, thought-provoking, innovative speakers and asking them all the questions that we need for success in business and beyond. Today's Walker's Legacy program was brought to you by AARP. Please connect with the AARP team to learn more about the many resources tailored to small business ownership and to multicultural entrepreneurship. We hope that you enjoy our next Ask a Boss series and look out for events happening in a city near you. Again, you can learn more about Walker's Legacy at www.walkerslegacy.com. Thank you so much for joining us today. Bye-bye.